That's all I have. Somebody else have some tips that they like to share with us?
A few years ago, I was doing production turning, a lot of small hollow forms and Christmas ornaments, things like that. And I did not like to turn and then take my tool out and measure because it took too long. You know, production is all about doing things quickly. So I designed this, which is a hollowing tool with an adjustable thickness gauge. I had set this using a screw for whatever depth or thickness I want, plus a little bit, so that when I'm hollowing out, I'm watching the edge here, and when I get just whatever thickness I've left as a gap, I know I'm at where I want it to be, you know. So I can go ahead and pretty much hollow the whole thing without stopping for other than to, you know, get the shavings out. Works pretty good. And it uses 1 1/4 inch diameter tool bits that you were just talking about. And if you want to make tools, there's one thing. A lot of people think you've got to buy exactly the size you need and all that. You can turn steel on one of these if you want to. You put the piece in with a chuck, just like you normally would with the tailstock, and use a good quality scraper at a slight angle like this, and it'll cut that steel away just like, you know, not as easy, of course, as a piece of wood, but works just fine. They use these things for thousands of years to make metal pieces because the machine lathe wasn't invented until 1880 or so, something like that. So aluminum, brass, steel, anything like that can be turned on these with good quality tools. And mostly scrapers are the easiest things to use until you've got, you know, I can turn it with a bowl gouge, but it takes some practice to do that. You know. But with a scraper, you just start low, come up, it'll start cutting, and you just have at it. You know. That's pretty much all I've got. You know. Yep.
I had a stroke, so I got a lot of loss of my hands. I've only got a couple items here I want to show y'all. I had trouble when I build pins with sticking the tube too far on a blank. So I made some tubes with a little step that allows me to put the blank in 1/16 inch and it won't go no further. And this one happens to be a 7mm and a 10mm, and I was trying to make several of them in one piece, and I found out that there's not enough difference in the sizes to do that. So I come back and said, well, I just make one of each. And this is a 7mm that I turn with a taper, and it allows to just set your blank or your tube into your blank just about a 1/16 of an inch. And I found a good use for Gorilla Glue. It glues handles on paper very good, and it's expanding glue. That's the only thing I found Gorilla Glue is good for. All right, I got a couple other little simple things that earlier they talked about making a pen press on the lathe. Well, I turned around and made me a pen press with my drill press. And all I did was take a piece of nylon, drill a hole, and set my point of my pen in. And then I stick this in the chuck of the drill press, and then I can press anything I want to. And it's just simple. I mean, most of the stuff we build is simple.
You took care of one of my presentations.
Okay, that was one of yours, huh? Okay, that's all I got. But I do happen to have, since we was talking about making pencils out of tree limbs, 2 pieces of bow dart, if anybody wants them. I cut a block into 4 pieces, and I got enough of the yellow and I would it will make a dude bill. Does anybody want these blanks? Anybody else want one? All right, that's it.
Thank you.
That last one he showed is one I had to show. You just turn an offset, and I use my drill press. If I'm putting in 7mm pins or whatever, I make a offset like he had, sort of slide down in that pin, that tube, 3/8 of an inch or so it don't get crooked. If it gets crooked, it'll bend it. And if you're doing a lot of them over and over, you got to stop on your drill press. You just slap them up there, pull that lever down. It's just as fast as you can handle them. And I was coming here a good while. I was noticing the guys that's moving their hands around to get to these levers, so it didn't hurt them when they were hitting them. If you'll take a golf ball and drill a hole in it and use it for a handle on anything that you got to hold this in, try that with a file sometime. And that's just really great. I'd used a hoof rest file here because that's what I had. And this is the same kind of file. It's a hoof file, but I'd rather use the others because you don't have to grind down so much. I heated the end and bend it around, and I ground a taper on it with the cutting edge showing. To get in, you go each side. You need a right hand and left hand, or regrind this after you make it. But you can cut your donuts and things on this. And I just taped this on each end because it's sort of easier on your hand. But if you're turning this in, you get through, you turn that around, just slide that down, you got a handle on the other end. If you use a tube big enough to go over it, then you couldn't hold it good. If you got a small file, which I use a lot of, just get a tube that will fit that small one, you got a handle, slide back and forth. Any questions? That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. For those of you that didn't get to go to SWAT, first try at SWAT, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. One evening, one of the demonstrators was doing a thing on, was making a demonstration on things you can do in the evening. And John's got a real good idea for what to do with your sandpaper, but this guy had an even better idea. Little sanding pads you get, the 2-inch ones cost $8, $9. I use 6 different kinds of sandpaper, 6 different grits, both the 2-inch and the 3-inch in my shop. This guy said, well, why not just make your own? And what I did, it was not my idea, take the magnetic type of tool bit that you would put in for a screwdriver bit, put it in the back of a 1-inch, and in this case, these are 1 7/8, so that your sandpaper folds over. Turn a piece of wood round, glue the stiff your bit in. The green on this one is, if you go down to Sam's or any place where they did the foam, and it's normally for kids' room, where they interlock together for you to stand on. It's a fatigue type mat, but they also make them for kids' rooms. They're all different colors. Use any color but black. The black doesn't work well because it won't stay glued. CA glue on both. I put it in the chuck on the lathe and sanded it to the bevel I wanted. The only thing I had to go buy was I went down to Joann Fabrics here on University and had to get some Velcro. They make a 2-inch Velcro. It costs about $1 a foot. I'm sorry, it's $9 for a yard, which I'm making 12 of these, 6 and 2-inch, 6 and 3-inch. I don't have to worry about, I've been wearing out pads because I keep taking the sandpaper on and off. And the Velcro will only last just so long. Well, this way I've got a set of 6 of them that starts at 120, goes up to 400 in 2-inch, and the same thing in 3-inch. And I don't have to worry about changing sandpaper. I just reach over and grab it. And on these, I use a magnetic clip. I've got a 90-degree drill that I use for sanding. I just stick them in. I just stick in the magnet. So I don't have to mess with the chuck at all. So anyway, the guy had a great idea. They're very simple to make, saved a whole lot of money, and speeds up my sanding. Any questions?
You just use the shirt drill, number 2 Phillips.
Well, what I did is I went down to Ace and found some 49-cent tips that they had that didn't work for anything. That's why they were so cheap. But I couldn't find the right length because all the ones that I had were real short. So I went to Harbor Freight, and they had a 32-inch, 32 bits. They're about this long that are made just like this. And what I did is I just cut them off the length I wanted them. A 7-millimeter hole is exactly what this will hammer into, and glue it with contact cement, or CA is what I used. And I used the thick CA, and it works very well. Any other questions? Thank you.